I'm Meg. This
I'm
is
Dory.
Story, and we use our powers for good. This is volume 3 of the Muck. I feel like we could probably talk about this.
We could have a book, a muck book,
A muck.
a book of muck.
Muck a book. Totally. Um,
Wait. We think we're funny.
well, we are.
That'll be an ongoing thing.
Right.
We think we're funny.
So, identifying the muck. You talked about your muck from your childhood.
Yep.
And I think of so many different mucks. But I think of, in terms of learning about the muck, identifying it. As a kid, there was the family muck,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't learn what the family muck was until years later because I was so in it. And it looked like getting triggered.
Mm.
It looked like constantly, like I think my nervous system was heightened and I was always ready to pounce when we all six of us got together.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I remember just feeling like
Mm-hmm.
this. How do I gotta like fight my way in there,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I'm just gonna say this quick. Prior to the last how many years, we didn't have these words.
no,
We didn't grow up saying triggered and my nervous system,
no,
blah blah blah.
no,
These are like
right.
today words.
And then the labels were like, oh right, I also had a habit of vomiting at school.
Oh my gosh, and you got to leave school. And you had migraines.
I had migraines, so I had migraines from kindergarten until sixth grade regularly. There was no language for it, but I went to a Catholic school. I was born in sin, of course, because the parents were divorced. I never knew my dad, and I was going to hell. So
By
I
the by the way,
super Catholic upbringing, and so I would in religion class cover my ears because I would hear these words, and like I remember like the migraines would start, and I would start to have these like snow, like what do they call that,
yeah,
auras,
yeah.
and then it was like bleh. So I was that kid that would puke regularly in school,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd call me the faker, and then I'd go home and everyone
Mm-hmm.
called me the faker. But it was also my body's way of getting my needs met of
Right,
time with mom.
right.
Because then it was like she's staying up with late with me to teach me school, so she was my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Every year I would miss so much school that if I missed one more day I had to take the year over. So I would do weeks and weeks worth of work overnight
With mom.
with mom, and we'd be up till who knows what time, and she would sit there and like teach me all of these ways of passing and learning, and my photographic memory was honed in. So there was the muck of like the family muck when we were all together.
That muck physically made you sick.
It made me sick.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that is crazy. Which is, I mean, like, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really common. I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
the stress they experience in their lives makes them sick or
Right.
makes them ill or gives them symptoms.
Right. And so the story, we love Gabor Mate and the working theory. Um, Look it up. We'll talk about it later. But essentially, I didn't have words to describe what was happening other than I got sick. I don't feel good. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't until
I couldn't
I
see.
couldn't see.
Right.
And then it was you're a liar, you're faking it. You don't want to go to school, you're stupid. All of these things, right? And it was like
Mm-hmm.
and then I got scared cuz this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bry was had
Our
a
middle brother.
yeah, and he's 9 years older than me. He had a concussion in football.
Mm.
So I was supposed to start 7th grade. And I finally was able to get out of the Catholic school and was going to go to public school. And it started to happen, the aura. And I was like, shit, it's coming. But again, there was no language about what this was other than I was cheating and lying and,
Mm-hmm.
not cheating.
Yeah, yeah.
And cheating
You're
something.
making it up.
Making it up.
Right.
And she was on the phone with his doctor describing what he was going through because of his concussion. And I was like, wait, that's been happening to me. That's what I've been talking about. And she was like, hold on, what? And I was like, what you're describing is what has been happening to me my whole life. And she was like, I could just see her like navigating the phone that, and she hangs up with the doctor and she was just like, oh my God. No apology or.
No, she didn't have the tools. Not that
It's funny to process this.
Yeah, and to listen to you, I kind of want to throw up a little.
Yeah, when people talk about their migraines, I'm like, okay, that's muck.
Yeah.
So my last migraine was I was 16. That's when I talked to dad for the first time. And then I was like, I'm not going to give that power. I'm done.
Mhm.
So that was just a story. And I could have believed that for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
But now I'm detached from it. And it was like, oh, good job, body, to carve out some mom time, you know?
Mhm. Mhm. Right, one way or the other,
Yeah.
we'll get
And
a piece
also,
of it.
like, hone in on my mad, like, photographic memory skills and,
Mhm.
you know.
But how do you, because like if you could put words to like what in your mind did you shift, or I mean you may not be able to connect to that because you're 16, right? That one
Well,
day
it was seventh grade.
that you woke up one day and you're like, that's it, or
Yeah.
like this is ridiculous,
Yeah,
or
it was the religion. Also, but giving it a name, it was like, oh, you suffer from migraines.
oh, the minute you heard um mom talking to the,
Yeah,
so it got labeled in
it
that
was
moment.
labeled. This is a migraine.
Man, this is our theory.
Yeah, you are no longer. You didn't cheat, or you weren't lying. Where does cheating come from? You weren't lying. You weren't faking it.
Mm,
All of those
you were
things.
validated in that
Yeah,
moment.
and I was like, but I remember just feeling normal, like knowing that other people, that Brian was having it
Right.
as well.
Right.
And then I was like, well, I've had way more than you. Oh, that's another thing we need to talk about is hierarchy of pain
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
experiences
Yeah.
because there is none.
Right.
But yeah, I felt normal and seen.
Wow. End scene.
And seen
No,
totally.
I mean
Right.
that's profound.
Right. Because it was, I remember, and then there was also like, remember when after mom died and I acted out sideways big time. And I dated a guy who was basically like our dad. Threw me down some stairs, stole my money, became a cocaine addict.
Oh, and this was all in Italy, by the way,
That happened,
where we couldn't quite get our hands on her.
right? But then they tried to label me as bipolar, which, you know, nothing wrong with being bipolar.
But that wasn't what was going
That
on.
was not my story. I wasn't eating. I was, but again, I remember just living in fear, being scared.
But a lot of health fear.
A lot of health fear. A lot of health fear.
I wouldn't have put that together till right now.
But it was like malnourishment, not drinking well, not staying hydrated.
Yeah. Well, also your mom had just died,
Mom
and you
just
had
said,
no parents.
yeah, it was like 52 card pickup. But I remember that night when Jerry was the one that swooped me up from the airport, took me to the psych ward, which looking back now, I think he thought I was suicidal that night.
Sure, sure.
Came to that realization recently.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I was just so tired. I was so done.
And did you stay there?
No, they wouldn't take me. I answered all the questions. I'm like, I'm not sleeping well. I can't eat. I was living off of cigarettes. It wasn't, I was scared of alcohol, so I was having like a drink or two, if that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just so sad. Like I was sad and then sad and then sad, you know? And the doctor was like, I think your sister's just had a really hard time. I would be in her state too if all of those things happened.
Yeah.
And Jerry was like, well, can't we just leave her here? And he was like,
No,
no, please
that's
don't.
that's not a thing.
He's like, for what she would be exposed to tonight,
Mm.
I think she's way too fragile.
Gosh, thank goodness for that doctor.
So it's like one label
Yeah.
and the other label.
Yeah.
But it's in those same experiences, sitting with that fear of the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
and then the fear of what if this happens again because of this label. Um, Ultimately, it's all normal.
Yeah.
All of this is life. All of these
So
experiences.
how does it show up for you now?
I mean, it shows up for me. I'm the most grounded, settled person I've ever been.
Sure.
And as devastating as losing Jerry is, it's been the most validating experience because I identify with the depth of his pain.
Sure.
But I also know how much I love myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so thankful of my community.
Mm-hmm.
And I know who they are. And I'm so honest about who I am and where I've come from and where I'm going. And I know he wasn't.
Right.
So so for me it's still well looks like now it's like Sundays because I when he died I was like, oh my god, I feel like I've been in bed
Mm.
for so many years and like
Mm.
we call it bed rotting now. That's my go-to happy place where I
Mm.
just zone out and on the screen and talked about how that's what Jerry did too. He
Mm.
did a lot of bed rotting.
Mm.
He would work from bed. He would.
Yeah.
So I think he and I had a lot of similarities.
Sure.
Um, Probably from an addictive point of view as well.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Whereas a lot of people, I don't bed rot because I've always the way that my work is. I got to go to work. Now I got kids. I got to get up with the kids. It looks like zoning out. It looks like self-medicating, which I mean, technically, no one wants to hear this is drinking and smoking pot and these
right.
different things. Scrolling and not responding to people, right?
Yeah.
Not being responsible, not being accountable. I mean, all sorts of things.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's I've just been looking at it all more
Yeah.
because as I've been growing my business, training in more people, and thinking about the language I want to use with them
Mm-hmm.
to help them find their best version of themselves so they can do their best work.
Mm-hmm.
And we never got a contextualizing, right? We
Mm-hmm.
never had an environment where we were
No.
told, good job,
Right.
because,
Right.
or go do that. That's not, you do you.
Right. Can you imagine?
No.
No.
And I think we're in a place now where so we're at a 52 card pickup with everything in our lives again.
Yeah.
All of us are.
Right.
And for me, it feels kind of lovely to know we're in this together,
Right.
despite this dumpster fire.
Sure.
But I think it's important for people to know that all of what you're feeling is okay.
Right.
And it's all normal.
Right. And my, some of why we're doing this is the awareness that not everyone feels this way. Like
Right.
that it's how I'm feeling is okay. I'm not saying it's great
Right.
and I'm comfortable. And with all the things going on in the world, it's like, oh, the more that people could understand it's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And also you're not alone.
Right.
I mean, this morning I felt like a crazy person, and by this afternoon I felt like nice and calm, and I got home and was like back up here. It's like, whatever. Just doing my best.
Yeah. And as much work as we do, it feels good to revisit,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
give a little mega hug.
Yeah, and I've never heard this and connected these dots. So, yeah, I love you.
I guess I haven't connected the dots in this way either.
Which is the beauty of, I mean, the important,
like, here we go.
which is the important thing of having some trusted people.
Right.
And if you don't have that, I think people use journaling for that, right? I'm just trying to
Sure.
think of like how you would do that if you didn't have someone to talk to.
Right.
Right.
Totally.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Like, share, and subscribe.
And then how about this? If you have any muck that
Oh my
you'd
God.
like to share, comment below.
Please share in my book.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.